What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the BREWtally Speaking Podcast. I am one of your hosts, John, and with me, as always, is Daniel Terry. How are you doing this week?
I'm doing good, man. Hang on a second, though. I don't know if I'm recording. Yeah, I'm recording. Cool, so whatever. Hold on, though. Talk to me real quick.
Talking to you. Talk to me. Talk to you.
Okay, I got it. Yep, cool. Cool beans. Well, hey, I'm doing great. I'm not doing great, actually. I've been sick for 5 days, and I'm doing great right now because I took a whole bunch of ibuprofen earlier, and I slept. I went home from work about 2 hours early today and slept for at least an hour of that, and then got up and was too exhausted to make food for anybody, so we ordered DoorDash, Burger King, which I ate, a meager meal for me. You could tell I was under the weather because I didn't get the Big King with bacon, and yeah, it's weird because I think my tonsils have some sort of infection going on, but it has not yet affected my voice, so we've got that going on. And luckily, in my favor, freeze pops from the local store and carbonated drinks seem to help quite a bit. So it's weird though. I'm telling people oh, I've got this really horrible throat problem, but I don't have any vocal fry going on or anything like that. So I don't know. It's been an experience, my friend, an experience.
Yeah. Speaking of experience, I'm going to try this Weathered Souls Brewing Costa Rican French Press beer.
Okay.
Sent over in my care package by Mark from Nothing More. Apparently I got another one because I sent him so much beer compared to what he sent me. So.
Well, that's officially on the record now.
Wow. That's really strong coffee flavor. I mean, I guess it should be with it being a French press, right?
Yeah, I mean, the problem with coffee for me is that it just
Let me see if I can show you how dark this is. As we're right now, as when we're doing this, we're on the Facebook and YouTube Live. Can you see how dark that is on the rim of this can?
Oh wow, yeah, that's rough. That looks like somebody just threw some mud up on here.
Yeah, it's
I'm into it.
All of that aside, all of the beer drinking, I know Dan is drinking a Space Dust, as he showed me earlier, and I mean, if you listen to this podcast enough, you know that's what Dan drinks. So
it is. I mean, it's like, did you guys wake up this morning? Did the sun come up? Did it go down?
Dust.
Did it go down about 12 hours later? Yeah, Space Dust.
This episode's guest is Rachel Taylor, vocalist for He Is We. Again, we've kind of been telling you that we're going to throw these for some curveballs. We threw the Pop Evil episode out 2 weeks ago, and then continuing with just kind of doing things that maybe you wouldn't expect from this show. Rachel Taylor actually is someone that I've been trying to get on the show for a couple of years. If you're not familiar with He Is We, wow, what a backstory. Pretty much anything and everything that could happen to a band in their run. If a band were to last for 30 fucking years, and you're like, wow, lawsuits, infighting, health issues,
changing the band name to She Is We.
Yeah, I mean, the band changed their sound a little bit and so on and so forth. All of that and then some in a matter of 10 years, I think, roughly.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really that long in the grand scheme of things.
No, and it's so weird sometimes, you hear people say X amount of time ago, and, they're like, I know it doesn't sound like a long time ago, and you're like, yeah, I guess a decade can start going by pretty quickly. We're like, that was 10 years ago. It's not that long ago.
Not really.
I guess having kids probably makes that seem like that for you too. Where you're like, oh fuck, I sneezed and you're 4.
Yeah, dude, no doubt. We had a new baby 3 days ago, and now he's walking and saying words and
paying rent yet?
No, but my 6-year-old has a job, so there's that. She went to work yesterday. She loves telling me, she's like, yeah, I'm gonna go to work, and I was like, great, if you keep working, then if you work really, really, really hard. Dude, it's so funny because I've got this amazing computer case, for my new PC build, and it's got rainbow puke LEDs all over it or whatever, and she's like, wow, that's such a really pretty case and a really pretty keyboard that also has a weird rainbow design on it. She's like, that's so cool. And I was like, yeah, and if you put your nose to the grindstone and you work really, really, really hard, next year I could buy another one. Having kids is great, man.
I guess. My puppy came up to me while I was painting my hallway and decided to pee right on the tarp. And I was like, really? This is what you're doing? But I was kind of not mad because I was like, well, at least it's not on the floor, technically.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a 2-year-old and we're going through that right now. Pretty hardcore. So
they just walk right up to you while you're doing something and just like drop trow and start peeing or shitting on stuff?
No, it's not quite like that. I will say, potty training is a exercise in trust. It is absolutely an exercise in trust, and it is rough. You have to give people their independence, but at the same time, they're not, they're not there yet. So like, it's rough. I won't get into the grisly details, but I will tell you that yes, a lot of trust. Trust is the most important aspect of any relationship, especially when pertaining to potty training. And that's all I'm going to say.
Kind of also speaking to trust, I think, it was something that was kind of cool about this podcast, actually getting back on track, was, that Rachel really hadn't done a whole lot of press leading up to, the release of their newest single, Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
And I haven't really seen a whole lot come out since. So, I mean, I know we did this conversation a little while ago, but I think all the information is still pertinent. I think it's about definitely someone who has overcome the odds so many times, perseverance in the face of so many things. That was kind of really why I really wanted to have Rachel come on the show. I think she is someone that is a beacon of inspiration, honestly. Like, as much as I love Josta for his, inspirational lyrics and so forth, and maybe that's not what you get from a He Is We song per se, I think the things that she has gone through as a person and as an individual and not backing down as a result of all the things she has been through is staggeringly inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, it's a roller coaster. Like, looking at her history and all, like in this band, and just the sheer amount of wacky randomness that seemed to take place. I mean, she starts off the conversation talking about how the van was struck by lightning.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a scientist, but like, what are the odds of that? Like, that's insane. But I mean, the odds are also, of being, accused of sexual assault. Like, I mean, that obviously that's a whole different can of worms. But like, my God, man, like I don't think I could handle one of those situations, much less both.
I think without further ado, I think we should get into this conversation with Rachel Taylor of He Is We, and we will talk to you afterwards. So I had the pleasure of talking to Rachel Taylor, vocalist of He Is We, whose latest single, Amazing Grace, is out now. It's kind of funny. I have been trying to get you on this show almost since the start of it, so almost about a little over 3 years now, and you have been very hard to track down.
I'm sorry. Well, I mean, I've been I've been adapting to being almost 30, and all of the life experiences that have come in the last 3 years have definitely got me ready for 30. So that's probably, I was so busy, so busy.
It is kind of funny, I'm 35, getting ready to turn 36 in a couple of months, and is one of those things where, I was just doing a podcast chat earlier with somebody else, and, we were kind of talking about looking back on the last 10 years of your life, and I was like, when I was 25, it's kind of funny. You think you're invincible, you think you know everything, and then you kind of get 10 years later, and you're like, how did I not get into way worse shit than I did and not have, like, really bad repercussions? And it's just those things that kind of inform you, like, wow, I guess, I should not do those things as I get older.
Oh, no, I've definitely, especially touring, I would say I am so shocked that there's so many times that I should have died. Our van got struck by lightning once.
What?
Oh, yeah. But it's like, when you're 18, 19 years old, all you can think about is telling your friends about it. Like, you don't think to yourself, whoa, death happens. So it's really, really interesting looking back at like 2008 versus I have a dog and a house and a mortgage. Like, oh my God,
So, interestingly enough, my wife, like, we've been together now for 10 years, been married for 5. And she, at the beginning of our dating, introduced me to your music. And in name, I was always aware of you and Taylor, and was one of those things where I never really kind of got to know the music until dating my wife and seeing, how much something meant to her kind of really made me take it more seriously than I think I would have just happening to find it on my own. And, it's really been interesting kind of in preparation for this. And like I said, wanting to talk to you for so long, because you've had a very interesting career. You start off as kind of an acoustic duo, and, this is at the kind of the height of Myspace, where bands were able to make and build their own brand, for lack of a better term, without the use of a label and so forth. And you, from what I remember, were one of the bigger bands coming out of that scene, of the kind of the Myspace scene in the kind of indie folk scene. So I kind of wanted to start there and just kind of say, looking back, I think that might be a theme that we run into this whole episode, but, looking back, that was a really interesting time period for musicians. So what was it like kind of traversing the infancy phases of social media as a band?
Oh gosh. So I never know how to put it, because you have to experience it to understand, like, that it is nothing like take everything you think it is, throw it away. Because it's very, identity-wise, you really start to lose yourself. And what's strange, though, is, a label, at least with a label, they will try to tell you who you are. But when you're creating your own brand, like, you really have to figure out, like, what are my weaknesses? What are my strengths? Who am I? What do I want to accomplish? Like, it kind of forces you into a position where you know that if it fails, it's because of you. You can't point at a label and say that they dropped the ball. It was an accident. The Myspace thing was an accident. 100%. I was ready to become a law enforcement officer. Like, I was nowhere near the concept of anyone ever knowing who I was. I was not a very big performer when it came to, like, high school and stuff like that. I would usually just sit in a locker room with a guitar and sing quietly to myself. I never liked singing for others. That sounds odd given my now, but I would say I'm glad that I was able to accidentally have it happen, because it really did allow me to make the choices that helped He Is We, but I also know that there were so many mistakes that were made, and I have no one to blame but myself. And so there's there are pros and cons list to the Myspace age. And I had to grow up pretty quick, I would say. And then I started working with a label and learning a lot about that community and the industry on a level that wasn't just creative, but learning the horror stories that VH1 behind the music, like, seeing and experiencing it, way different than trying to figure out your top 8 on MySpace. Way different.
Yes.
So different.
So something, that I've kind of harped on quite a bit, I don't know if harp is the right word, but something that I've discussed quite a bit in looking back is, a lot of my friends' bands and a lot of bands that I grew up listening to, being kind of more into, I'll say, like, kind of that emo, screamo, hardcore scene of the late 90s, early 2000s, is a lot of those bands were getting signed pretty much straight out of high school. And it's been very interesting to me to talk to people who went through basically getting signed at such a young age, when it's still pure and it's still a thing you do for fun, but then it becomes a commodity. It becomes a product that has to sell, and you're having to basically be looked at as a product and figure out what and who you are, while most people aren't going to do that for another 5-6 years at least. So I mean, I know you kind of touched on it. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit more about what that is like from your perspective of kind of growing up very quickly and kind of having your love kind of be looked at a completely different eye?
Oh, for sure. That was actually a huge reason why I never thought of doing music, as a job. Music is what allowed me to put words to to the feelings I had as a little emo, kid just doing her best. And to an extent, I would say it bothered me to have to take the step where suddenly I was being judged on my content and my look and the brand itself. It was an eye opener for me because I realized I don't care what people think. That was the greatest gift I think that God gave me, was the inability to care about like the status of an individual. Like, I remember getting signed because I was so not starstruck by the guy that owned the label. I really didn't give a crap about any of that stuff. The business, the politics, I didn't care. And if you were to tell me, oh, this song isn't pop enough, I would say, okay, and what? Like, I'm not changing it. And that is the one thing that I think has hurt and helped me all at the same time, is kind of screaming anarchy with the music and not compromising with anyone about what I'm going to write. I refused to allow anyone to have any sort of credit for the lyric and the melody, because I wanted to ensure that if anything was real in this industry, it was the content. Even if everything else is manufactured and put together nicely with a bow on it, I want to make sure that the content itself is who I am.
So this might be a little bit of a weird question, but I think kind of parallels what we're talking about currently. So I remember my wife introducing me to you, and I honestly can't remember if it's the demo versions, like they were all acoustic and so forth, but I want to say when you put out the record, they were reworked versions of basically that demo. And
yeah,
her and I have talked about constantly, because, some of our favorite bands have done that, where you hear a song and it's in a demo form. Like, I mean, this is kind of I'm going to lose credibility points for this, but, a song like maybe like Jane Says by Jane's Addiction, like there was the live version of that, which is the one that everyone fell in love with. And then they went in the studio and re-recorded it. And it just doesn't have the same, I don't want to say intensity, it just doesn't have the same vibe that does.
Oh.
And I don't know how much of that was because that was in the moment. It's a live song. They're feeding off of the crowd and so forth. But, we've talked about how interesting it is that you basically reworked the songs as a full band, even though it was just still the two of you. And I've never really seen, because this is back in the day before podcasts or a lot of interviews and the internet really being what it is, never really found out why that was. So other than, I'm assuming, a label telling you that, like, hey, we think this needs to be, what was the reason for not just basically re-releasing the demos? Because I don't think there was anything wrong with those.
I think it was, again, I really just wanted it to continue to be something personal to me. And, we could have kept it acoustic and simple, but I also wanted to at least try it.
Okay.
And the thing was that the compromise that was made within myself was, well, if I don't like how it sounds, then I don't like how it sounds. And we always have the stripped down version. So regardless, I'm just stoked to hear what it sounds like. And so I didn't really pay much mind to, keeping it as it was, because a creative brain doesn't rest. So I wanted to keep figuring out how I could emotionally create a track where the string part really echoed the emotion in the bridge, or there were just so many ways that I was having fun with it. And I was trying to figure out how to tie the band sound with my words. And honestly, I love production, and the reason being is it's a puzzle. You sit there and you try to determine what is going to get the point across when it comes to the tone of the kick, or the delay on the electric, like figuring out ways to, use the track as almost like a harmony to the story being told.
Yeah, I think and this isn't necessarily a slight against my wife in any way, shape, or form. I know I'm more musically inclined. Like a lot of times I'm that person who, if you're listening to something, I go, oh, that's that like melody from this. Like the other day, I don't remember what she was. I don't know what she was listening to the other day. It was like some rock band that I had just interviewed, and she was really gotten into them in the last couple of days. And I go, I recognize this, and I go, oh, that's that bridge melody from this. It's the chorus, and it's the chorus melody. And she goes, what? And I started playing it. She goes, I don't know, I don't hear that. I already forgot the other melody if that's even what you're saying. I don't even know what I was just listening to, and I don't know. So to me, it's like when a lot of bands will, between your demo phase, the demo songs to what ended up being the re-recorded versions, I kind of liked it because I did notice, those kind of things where it's like, oh, so instead of it being kind of a sparse arrangement, now you're kind of adding more, like this guitar line might be doing, like kind of harmonizing with your vocal, or might be replacing this other melody that you had, or now creating a counter melody and so forth. So in that regard, like I've kind of grown to like it because of the different nuances I've discovered in it. But it is just kind of one of those things when you think about it, it's like, well, I fell in love with this thing as it was, and now it's changed, but it's still the same. But I preferred the other thing more, and I just kind of, I know my wife has asked me that question, or has asked that question so many times, and I was like, there are going to be a handful of things I'm going to ask specifically for you because you've always wondered. So that was one of the ones I know that she has mentioned over our time of being together. Something else, kind of, tying it back to my wife. The band was coming through here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We were really stoked. She had never gotten to see you play, and unfortunately, once we got there, we found out you were not the vocalist for that show. As it was explained to us in the crowd, that basically you were sick, and your wishes were that the band go on and allow everyone to sing the songs and all that kind of stuff. And my wife and I, being older than most of the people in attendance, were like, we feel robbed because, rightfully so, you are the voice of the band and half of the band that we came to see, and we were not told that you weren't going to be there. And it just kind of felt a little disingenuous when we were in this room hearing, I do understand having a band member and you're like, hey, we want the best for them, they're not feeling great. But it just seemed like they were really going overboard with it. So you're just like, that doesn't seem right. And then lo and behold, you made a post that like, yes, I am sick and I'm going through some things, but something about that time frame, and I kind of want to talk about that. And another theme we're going to talk about is you constantly are overcoming a lot of obstacles. And I don't know how to say it any nicer than that. It seems like you're willing to take challenges head on, and I've always admired that about you, and I think it makes me want to root for you to do well. And when you made the announcement that basically things weren't the way they seemed, it was kind of nice to see that you weren't willing to, quote-unquote, play ball, because I'm sure a label was like, hey, don't say anything, don't rock the boat, this, that, and the other.
Correct.
And it was nice that you had a lot to lose, and you still stood up because you wanted to be genuine and sincere. And I kind of wanted to, I know you've made a press release about that at the time, but I don't really know that you've ever really talked about it. And I kind of, that's something that has always stayed with me. And I kind of wanted to know more about that time because it's going to come into play here in a little bit when we talk more about some other things coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, like I had said, I feel like the best thing God blessed me with was not caring about that kind of like the label. I wasn't afraid of the label. I knew that they worked for me, if that makes sense. Like I was fully aware that that's how it's supposed to work. So what had happened was that, yes, I got sick. I was actually, my spine was fusing together. Like it wasn't just like I had some sort of flu.
Right.
It was pretty intense. And I had actually told my manager at the time, hey, we should not book any tours. My doctor said that my immune system was shot because it's a medication in the chemo family that I had to be on and do infusions. And my doctor made it very clear, you cannot go you are supposed to stay at home and that is it. And I specifically asked that we don't tour, and he said okay, we'll play it by ear. And that this is a former manager, obviously, and he just kind of kept talking as though, like, we'll see what happens. We'll see. And I remember I looked online and suddenly fans were saying, "Oh, I'm so excited to see you here. I'm excited to see you here." And the tour had been booked. And not only booked, but there was a press release. And I told my manager, "There's no, what's going on here?" And he turned it into like a, so just because you're sick, we can't punish the fans for that. And I said that no, there's no way. Like, this doesn't make any sense. It just didn't match who I am as a person. There's no way I would be okay with anyone else telling the story and talking to the fans that I've been talking to on, Instagram and stuff like that, and following their journey. It felt wrong. So after that conversation, it turned into a horror show when it comes to the drama that unfolded. All the passwords had been changed. My label representative at the time and my manager stopped picking up the phone and responding to email, and I had zero idea what had been going on. And I then saw that there was a photo shoot done, and there was a girl in the photo that was not me. And then I start seeing, kids saying, I got a VIP ticket or meet and greet, and it wasn't Rachel. What the heck is that? Like, I feel kind of like you said, like I feel robbed. And I felt so angry and so upset about the fact that I couldn't just, I guess, do my press release on my own because I didn't have passwords to anything. I didn't know how to talk to everyone on the scale that this was happening. I had no idea. And it then became messy because I realized very quickly that the money part meant more to people than I thought it would. And so the idea of being okay not touring, but maybe just writing a record, that wasn't an option for the people that I had in my life at that point. It became extremely painful for me to recognize that the one thing that I feared about, I guess, doing this as a job, the one thing I feared became a reality in a disturbing way. And I felt as though the purpose of He Is We and the reasoning behind the name itself had been tarnished. That, we were speaking as though we cared about the fans, but then, lo and behold, there's no decency to let them know that something's going on with me. So I felt like a fraud. I felt like the one thing that I had tried to keep sacred was the relationship I had with the fans. Like, the label could do whatever they wanted to me. I didn't care. The only people I cared about were the people that made me feel like I finally belonged somewhere. And that was the fan base. They became the friends and family that I needed. So it got to a point where I then was told that I couldn't record any music as He Is We. So I put an S in front of it and essentially gave a middle finger. And it was a statement. I did all of that as a way to essentially showcase that this is how stupid this industry can be. That I can still do what I'm doing, but you are so proud of the look of an indie band, and there's a certain vibe, and I didn't fit that mold, and I wanted to make it clear that I didn't care, that the fans were gonna scream anarchy and just do what we wanted to do.
So the interesting thing about that, too, as you're saying all of that, and I'm kind of reminded of being back in the venue and my wife and I leaving not even halfway through the set because we're like, this isn't what we paid for. Like, it would be like saying like, oh, I'm going to see John Bon Jovi, and John Bon Jovi's not there, but it's somebody else in the rest of the band. It's like, no, like the voice and the thing that makes what we're here to see is not here. And it's just basically a cover show at that point. You know, nothing against any of the musicians that were there, but I mean, that's the reality of it. The thing that was interesting in looking back and thinking about it is, it seemed like, and you know, this is a tired and true tale of the music business, but it seemed like they were the one thing that they wanted you for, which was your voice, is the thing that they took away from you during all of this, or tried to. Yeah, no, it's true. That's a very powerful observation. I agree. And then She Is We. I remember, and this is a thing that keeps happening with you in my wife and I's lives, is I remember getting out of work or going somewhere, and I just hear this song, and I was like, this is a pretty fucking catchy song. Like, what is this? She goes, oh, it's Rachel. She Is We. And I was like, oh. I go, wait, She Is We? And she goes, yeah. And I go, so she's not allowed to be in her band, probably for legal reasons at this point, but she's able to carry. I was like, I like this. And what was interesting is, and I know this is such a stupid thing to kind of like get caught up in, but you changed, as of from the perception from the fans, it was the first time we're seeing you again, really. This is the first time like you had changed your hair, you had kind of changed your sound, and everything. Something that was interesting to me, because I know how long it takes for things to come out, having friends in the industry. How long had you been working on this music, and was it such a concerted effort on your end to go, if you think I'm this and you want me to be pop, I'm going to go full on the opposite way of what everyone thinks I am and showcase that I can be more of a pop female fronted singer? So the statement that I was making, because that entire record is about the angry part of me that I didn't feel like the label allowed me to talk about. Right. And so, I mean, I cut my hair off, and I did all of that stuff because I had fans that were telling me that they went in so that they could get their hair cut like mine, or, you know, colored like mine, or bangs like mine. And I wanted to ensure that I was never the product that they believed in. I want the music to be what they believed in. And the label had a clear-cut idea of what they wanted for me, and it was like a Disney pop individual, and that I grew up listening to grunge. Like, I'm very, no. So I touched into that part of myself, and I allowed people to see, you do not have to look a certain way. You do not have to carry a smile with you at all times. You can still go on stage and you can kick ass. You can be creative, and you can 100% still, you do what you want. Do what you want. And I didn't just want to be one of those people that, you know, I, in interviews, would say stuff like, you can accomplish your dreams. Like, I didn't want to just sit there and do that. I wanted to ensure that I showed that it can be done. And that was half. I think the thing that about that record, that She Is We record, this maybe coming from me as a guy, this sounds really stupid to say, but it just felt so empowered, and it reminded me of some of my favorite female vocalists. Like, you know, it reminded me kind of like Rhythm Nation by Janet Jackson, or maybe not to the same degree, but like I really love Mariah Carey, and I think her Butterfly record, I think, is the record that she broke out and became more of the artist she wanted to be. I'm a huge Aaliyah fan. Yeah. I think that last record that she put out, her self-titled record, I think, and One in a Million, I think were, you know, these records where a lot of women were breaking away from what the industry and what the mainstream was like, this is what you are. And it's like, no, I am these things. And I'm independent, I'm fierce, I have a voice of my own, and I have these things to say. And I just was really excited for that record, for the She Is We record, because it felt like that. It felt like that moment for you, where you finally, we were getting to see a more, and I'm not saying that you lacked passion before, but I felt like, you know, who you are, basically, and what you stand for as a young woman coming into your own who has been trying to break through and play the game, and unfortunately it kind of played you, and this is you kind of standing up for yourself. And I was looking forward to seeing you tour on that record, and unfortunately you just never really did on that record. And I don't know how much of that was just bad timing for trying to tour, if it was the opportunities weren't there, because the unfortunate thing is the industry sees you as one thing, and if you ever try to break out of those things, it takes a little bit for everyone else to catch up to what you're doing. And I don't know if that was also an issue where it's like, well, no, that's the indie folk girl who plays guitar and sings like in sundresses, not this, pixie haircut girl with, color in her hair talking about, giving the middle finger basically to the industry and everything she's been through.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. It was, I, how some people will, they have like a battle cry or something. Like mine was Beyonce. I would just yell Beyonce backstage because that was like, that was the way that I had to look at this, was like, this is my Sasha Fierce. This is my moment to look at the camera and show that there's not just passionate love. There's passionate anger. There's wrath. And there are all of these emotions that a lot of writers, I often said as a child that I feel too much. Like I was a little kid and I would tell my mother, I feel too much. And so this allowed for me to feel stuff that, I don't think the fans maybe expected at all. And I know that the promoters didn't know what to do with me because it was so different from the, indie happy butterflies and, that kind of thing. I didn't tour much on that record because, the politics of the label were very interesting. There were a lot of moving parts. I was in an unhealthy relationship and it just kind of didn't end up happening. The tours were just not a thing at all. And I loved that record. That's the only record I will actually listen. I'll listen to and reflect on.
This might be a weird question, and maybe I'm getting to it a little bit too early, but have you reworked any of that She Is We material to kind of fit more into the He Is We space?
Well, there are a couple of the songs that I think I could really have fun with. If anything, the song Porcelain that I did, that's one that I have wanted to rework and maybe even turn into like a piano ballad.
Okay.
There are a lot of ways that I've thought about just breaking them down and hoping that maybe that will showcase the emotion more than an electric guitar ever did.
Seemingly, we're at the point where it looks like everything's, good to go. He Is We is back together. You put out a record, and technically you're first in 7 years.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because a lot of times on this podcast we talk about fans' interests waning, and you have to keep up with the breakneck pace of life now, and keeping up with everyone's attention spans, which is non-existent. And I remember when this record came out, my wife was listening to it, and I was like, oh, so they finally, 7 years later, they're finally releasing a record, which for those who are fans, probably followed you onto the She Is We thing, so it's not as drastic of a time difference between the first record to something else that you put out, but under the moniker, it's 7 years. It's almost the tenure of the band at that point. And again, you're such an anomaly because you always kind of fly under the radar until you kind of pop back up, and you didn't do a whole lot of press. So like when this happened, it's like, yeah, there was the whole like, I'm not in the band, this is going on, now here's She Is We, this is what I'm doing, and then that kind of went away, and then all of a sudden She Is We is back, and it's like, okay, so everything's good with everybody, and now it's like, it was just weird. And then, like, I remember asking her, I was like, are these like old songs that they were working on prior, or are these new songs that are like, I don't know. There's just so many question marks I had about that record. So I figured I'd point blank ask you, where did these songs come from and kind of where were they birthed out of? Because it's a very tumultuous time, it seems, for you to appear back in He Is We.
You're talking about the Hold My Heart record or a different one?
The what is it? Fall Out of Line, I think it was the record.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, those were all. Those were all of our songs that we had done years ago. They were older songs that maybe we had on MySpace or something that we never released, if that makes sense. So that's what that was.
And then the EP.
Yeah. And as far as the band itself, I think this is the other thing the label did. They turned it into a band as opposed to an artist. They had originally wanted to sign me individually.
Okay.
But I was terrified. I was 18, absolutely terrified of the idea of, I guess, leaving my friend at the time behind. I didn't want him to feel like I didn't appreciate his hard work. And so it's strange, but he and I haven't, like, all the He Is We stuff that you've probably heard, he's not near it.
Okay.
But I guess I still try to give off the band vibe so that people don't think that I'm just, I don't know, just this one-man show, even though I am. I hate being on stage by myself. So I like the idea of having anyone on the stage with me. So it's funny when people say, like, oh, He Is We, they're back together. It's like, oh, I wish I could tell you.
Well, it's funny you say that, because the whole time I always kind of felt and wondered, because, in looking at the liner notes, you're credited with, I think, most everything. So from the side of the business that matters, where it's your publishing, it's who has the writing credits and all that. That's kind of why, and I was going to get to that, where it's like, it always seemed like it was you, not so much a duo, but I don't think people sometimes realize how things are put together for a presentation aspect.
Correct.
Like, something I don't know that people know about, and in doing this podcast, I've actually gotten more on the inside of this, is like the voice. So, yep. I got someone to have on the podcast because they were going to be on The Voice, and they were an artist development deal, and basically this was a way for them to appear out of nowhere, but they were already signed to a label. They were on a developmental deal. Yep. There was already things going on, and they were going to be touted on a TV show as being an unsigned, unknown person who just showed up and auditioned. And it's like, no, they already were known they were going to get through to a certain extent on the show. Yeah. And that this was a way for, they probably wouldn't win, but it would be one of those things they're going to get far enough, and then you're going to go, I like that person. And now it's a built-in fan base. And I don't think people realize that the industry is that, I don't want to say smart, but they're that conniving that they will present you something because they know that is a package that's more easily digestible.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like, to me, it's a synthetic version of something that's supposed to be organic. You essentially become manufactured, and people obviously they want to see something that like you're explaining with The Voice. If you want to launch someone and make people feel like they're the ones who found them, like they're the ones who made their career what it is, like that's why they're doing it. They're doing it so that there are those diehards that are like, I saw them before they got signed, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's some sort of, like, interesting psychological way of going about the fandoms. Like, I remember with He Is We, it it was this strange thing where people would say, like, I've been listening to you, since da-da-da-da-da. Well, I heard this demo when she was messing around with it in her room, and she posted it on a secret YouTube. Like, people kind of going back and forth about who was there first, or
right.
who got more of the experience. And the thing with having two people on stage versus just me is it kind of gave this question mark. People were wondering, are they together?
Yeah.
Are they not?
It was
are
around
they
the whole White
fall
Stripes
in love?
thing too.
Exactly. And so what it did was it caused intrigue immediately, because you want to know our relationship. That's just a natural, that's natural. So it kind of just became like, that's what we were doing, I guess, like that. And I was fine with it because I didn't want to be on stage by myself. Gross. Like, when I have my band on stage, I will always step out of the spotlight, because I don't like that part of it. It's like the same reason why sometimes going to church and seeing like a worship band, there are some people that are humble about it. And then there are other people that they think like they are Beyonce and that you're there to see them. And the thing is on stage, I never wanted to appear as though this was just like a fun, neat experience that was not going to be true to who I was at all. And so I would just back up and I would allow the music to speak for itself. And that was it. Like it was just interesting because I never told anyone, even on stage, I had never mentioned that this was my brainchild from the age of 14. I'd never mentioned it.
It's always hard, and especially in the last couple of weeks, I've had a lot of hard things that I kind of have to talk around for just sake of not being a shitty person. So some things happened once the band started kind of making a name for itself again, finally being able to tour, which caused the band, to go away for the last couple years.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, if you don't know what we're talking about, I'm sure a very quick Google search will pull that up. Educate yourself if you're unfamiliar. So that is all I'll say about that.
Yeah.
So I talked earlier about the theme of you personally is overcoming. Here we are in 2020 with Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
It seems that by all accounts if it's on social media, it must be true, right? By all accounts, that basically He Is We is now just you, as it was always meant to be. And I'm wondering for all of us listening, for all of those who are listening, who have been around, I'm not going to say from day one, but from whenever they came on, what is going on with the band now? What is the plan for now? Is there a full record, or are we just... Because now we're in a day and age where singles are kind of king. It's not necessarily about putting out full lengths and touring for 2, 3, 4 years. It's about putting out singles and EPs and getting on playlists and all that kind of stuff. So the reason I brought up you starting off on MySpace and all that kind of stuff is we are kind of back to that, where you can kind of put out music and it's more about just connecting with fans quickly again. So what does He Is We look like for you now in the present? What's
so strange is, man, oh man, what a roller coaster. I will just say that entire ordeal, the allegation in general that was made against me. I wish that we had more time to discuss that, because it was, I had fans telling me that they were going to kill themselves and how could I do this? And, I'm sitting there like, oh my God, what is happening? And, for the first time, in my life, in my career, I felt like the people that I cared about most no longer cared about me, and that my relationships with them, that somehow somehow I had disappointed people before I could even have a day in court. And so I took her to trial. I don't know if you actually read about that part, but yeah, I took it to trial because as someone who, I have been assaulted. I have gone to the police and had it not heard. And so it was interesting, and it pissed me off to think that, this person who's alleging that I did something is able to go out and have a press release field day. And yet there are so many of us that we feel like we can't say anything about what has happened. And it's because of allegations like that people don't buy it. And it taught me that the way that I want to live my life today in 2020 is no BS, no secrets, no. That's why I told you at the beginning, like, if you're going to ask me anything, if I don't feel comfortable talking about it, odds are I'm not going to feel uncomfortable talking about it. Like, I'm going to be very, very candid, I guess. I would say that, it showed me what's really important to me. And for some reason, everything came full circle. And it was as if I needed to be broken down and, to finally give up my stubborn ass ways and just fall to my knees and go, okay, I don't know what's going on. I don't care how to make it better. I just need it to be better. And I ended up falling into an intense depression. And I was dropped from tours, and it was just really, really messy. But today, oh man, the night that Amazing Grace was released, for Valentine's Day, I had the opportunity to sit with my husband and just cry for the first time about all of it. And he thought I was sad. And I told him it was just the opposite. I never thought for a moment that I would be where I'm at right this very second, in a brand new home, married. I have a dog that I've kept alive somehow, and he's a psycho. But not only that, I fell back in love with music and that resentment that I had, because I refused to pick up my guitar. I refused to sing or write for so long because I resented music. And now I have a studio in my home that I get to create when I want to, because I want to. And that's probably the most beautiful part of 2020 so far is I'm back to 2008. I'm back to 2004, 2002, when I first wrote the song Radio. I'm back to that point where I'm able to look at music and do it therapeutically and not hold on to the parts and pieces of me that I lost, because I feel like I needed to lose them in order to make my way here. I had to get rid of the dead weight.
It's unbeknownst to you. So in the episodes that are going up this week, I did a 2-part chat with this guitar player of a band, Lorna Shore. And their vocalist, they had a new vocalist come into the band to record this new record. And a bunch of nasty allegations have come out against him, involving minors, involving racial slurs, and a bunch of other stuff. And so something I had prosed to the guitar player that I talked to, Adam, was, the thing I probably shouldn't ask you, because I'm probably not allowed to, is, how hard is it knowing that this thing that you've been working your ass off for 10 years, doing tours, eating shit on the road and so forth, is going to be taken away by someone for something that you had nothing to do with?
Yep.
In talking to Andrew from the Ghost Inside, the band that you might have heard of because they were involved in that horrible bus accident.
Well, I saw them live. I'm obsessed with that.
I went to Andrew's house the other day and we did a chat that'll be out at this point, so I don't feel bad about talking about it. But, it was a thing where we had to talk about a solo record basically that he put out, and it was an instrumental. And we basically talked our way through their rec because of the music he said or put out. And like I was kind of saying, it's the non-verbals of everything you've gone through that are speaking, that are deafening. Yeah. That you're talking about. And it's one of those things where you getting to come on and hopefully, and what you have done is being undeniably you and persevering through all these adversities you've gone through. It's kind of been the theme for the last month or so of the conversations I've been having, where it's people who are being put into some very, very trying times where so many people would give up, and at least the three people, yourself included, that I'm talking about have not. And, I know you've kind of talked about it, but, as we're kind of wrapping up, what has kept you going and fighting through everything? Because Lord knows half of what you've gone through would probably put most people to be like, I'm done. I quit. I tap out.
Yep. Well, the thing is I don't know what other people have said their reason is, or how they've managed to get through all this and not quit. I tried to walk away over and over. I don't know if anyone else knows that, but I continued to walk away from it, and for some reason it wouldn't go away. It kept coming back, and I know it's cliche to say, like, it's the fans. I did it for the fans. But in reality, it was like I was hit up by fans that, didn't just say like, hey, I love your work. Like, they would hit me up and ask, how are you? And that, it's so silly, but it's moments like that where I needed it. I needed to know that I was more than just a product that went bad, and, that what I had done wasn't in vain, and everything I sacrificed wasn't in vain. I think what kept me going was knowing that it wouldn't be done unless I put one foot in front of the other. And that if anyone was going to get it done, like I said, my stubborn ass, if anyone's going to get it done, it's the person that, doesn't know how to tap out, and almost to a fault. It's damn near impossible for my husband to keep me resting if I have a fever. I'm very much like, no, I have got this, until I'm dead in the ground, I can make a change. And I genuinely believe that God himself has done insane things to grab me by my arm and pull me back, because everything in me has wanted nothing but to turn away when it gets hard. And there's always that one person that'll hit me up, or that one thing that I read that kind of gives me this peace and this clarity that the pain that I'm feeling right now it's a grain of rice, 10 years from now. And I don't know. I would genuinely say it's my stubbornness and God providing some incredible people for me to cross paths with.
What does the rest of this year hold for you and the band, or you as the artist, I guess? And where can everyone find you online?
Oh, shameless plug time. I think it's He Is We Music or He Is We Official. I don't know. Look for the one that, when you read the tweets or the posts, it seems like a person being a person. That odds are that one's me. As far as 2020 goes, man, I am stoked to, like I said, be back in love with music and doing it for the right reasons. So I want to get more involved in the community that helped me get here to begin with. I really want to tap into people dealing with very similar things that I've had to. I want to give back my time. in any way that I can. So maybe not touring a bunch, but I want to ensure that I'm able to say thank you, whatever that looks like. So I'd like to record and release more music. But more than anything, I really want to rebuild those friendships with the fans and get to know them again.
Well, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time. Like I said, this has been something I've been trying to find a way to get you to come do this, because I've had a lot of questions, and I feel like a lot of the people who are listening probably might have some of the same questions I've had for a while. And this may not be a podcast or a format a show that they may listen to typically, but I think also showcases the fact that I'm more than just a metal, hardcore, heavily tattooed guy, that I actually like and know a lot more other things. So I want to take the time to thank you for taking the time to do this show with us tonight.
Of course. Thank you for not being afraid to ask the hard questions.
Yeah, it is tough, but I always dip my toe in lightly and then just kind of see what happens from there.
Well, you did great. Thank you very much.
So that was my conversation with Rachel Taylor of He Is We. Really informative, long chat. I know seemingly it felt like I did a lot of the talking, but when you have someone that's been through the ringer in the industry, it's like you want to make sure that when you're asking a question that you're, getting it all out there so they can answer all of it.
Yeah, no, that was great. I enjoyed that. I really didn't think that I would. I know you were trying to sell me on it for a while, saying that oh yeah, it was a Christian band in the, in that scene. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Are there screams and breakdowns? And you're like, nope. And I'm like, does the band rhyme with mayo? Because if it doesn't, I don't know who that is. But I have familiarized myself with it, with their music, and I actually kind of liked it. And I was actually really surprised once I started digging into the band's history and finding out everything that basically she had gone through, and the people that she had gone through, and it was very eye opening, and to hear her perspective on some of this stuff was really good, and she was very open, and that's one of the things that we value a lot on this podcast, because it can get a little awkward whenever you're getting into some of the more personal details.
Well, and what kind of was a little bit awkward too on occasion was even just the fact of, and this kind of sounds shitty to say, it's I didn't necessarily want to talk about the sexual abuse allegations and so forth, because at the time of when we recorded that was all had just been figured out, and all the details of that kind of came out, but I didn't even know that at the time. Rachel actually was like, oh, well, you know how that went, or something to that effect, and I was like, no. And then kind of I got filled in in the moment as well. But it's, like I said in the intro, it's just to hear what Rachel has gone through. I mean, like you said, throw one of those things at me, fuck it, I'm done.
Yeah, dude, game over.
Game over.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's just a thing where, I think that's the thing. Even on the She Is We record, like I said in the interview, that song Boomerang, it's it doesn't sound like anything, and really that record doesn't really sound like anything that you would have expected from Rachel or He Is We at the time, but it's infectious, and she was able to take some of the shit that she went through and turn it into a really fucking catchy song. And it's, again, beating a dead horse, but just perseverance. If you don't listen to this and aren't inspired to overcome any of the setbacks that maybe you're going through in life, I mean, Rachel has had everything thrown at her, and that in her personal life as well, with her sickness and that she went through as well. Just hats off. I mean, like I said, it's inspiring to hear someone who just has no quit in them. Yeah.
I mean, that type of determination is definitely not something that that most people, I feel, are gonna be able to withstand. I mean, for me, I would just be like, well, I guess I'm just going to save face and just kind of back off into the sunset, and that's going to be that, And
a lot of people have. A lot of people that have gone through even an iota of what Rachel has gone through have packed it in or just disappeared.
Totally.
I don't know. Like I said, I wanted to do this episode for so long, and I felt like I kind of fanboyed out for my wife, for her, with this chat. But I think a lot of longtime He Is We fans are going to get a lot of answers to things that they've wondered. about the band's history, the past, things going on currently, and so forth. I wish it looked like Rachel was kind of poised to start doing some new stuff. Like I said, Amazing Grace had just dropped as of when we were doing the interview.
Yeah.
But I think at this point, like everybody, it's kind of like do we put anything out? What's the point, kind of, maybe?
Sure.
So hopefully some new music will come out, because I'm interested to see what this whole thing that she's gone through has inspired lyrically and being able to talk about over the course of a record. Always something that Rachel's always been great at is, using her words to tell a story.
Yeah.
If you would like to keep up with He Is We, you can follow them on Facebook at heiswe.official, Instagram at heiswemusic, Twitter at heiswe, or keep up with them at their central hub, weareheiswe.com. And if you would like to keep up with all things going on with Dan, he'll tell you what he can be doing. Probably selling a graphics card is best I can tell.
Okay, so I've got this amazing graphics card, right?
Local pickup only.
Local pickup only, so unless you're, like, watching this, then you can, I don't know, PayPal me or Venmo me or whatever it is the kids do these days. It takes up 2 PCI slots. You can hook up to 3 display ports and 1 HDMI on this baby. It has got it has got heat sinks out the butt.
Did you say Hink sink?
Hink sink. It's like heat sink, but it's Hink. Hink sink out of the butt. It is amazing. It'll play the games. It does the games. It loves the games. And you can buy it from me for some money. Yeah. So that's what I got for that. But if you don't care about any of that, it's fine. You can keep playing in 480p or whatever it is you play in. That's perfectly fine. But you can also find my other podcast, Discography Discussion, at discussmetal.com. You can email me at discussmetaldan@gmail.com. You can hit me up on Twitter at discussmetaldan. I am on Facebook under plain old Daniel Terry. So it's just this beautiful face. If you see this face, you got the right guy.
And if you would like to keep up with all things this podcast, is simple enough. BrewSpeak Pod. Or if you're feeling adventurous and you're on the interwebs, go to brewspeakpod.com. We have our website up and running. I think it looks pretty rad.
Dude, it's running so fast I can't even catch up to it. It's almost like if you wanted to view this podcast, the best way to do it would be with this graphics card. I mean, I am telling you what, man, this thing will kill it for you. It is a GTX 960, 4 gigabyte. And you know what? If you are a listener to the podcast, I will sign it for you if that sweetens the deal for you at all.
Well,
I'm hawking. You know what, dude? I'm trying to sell something. So what I need to do is get a publicist, and then I need to have the publicist reach out to you and be like, no, Dan's really cool. You should talk to him. He's totally not just trying to sell you something.
What if that was the podcast?
Available on Facebook Marketplace right now.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, man. I'm just trying to think of how many more ways I can derail this. This is becoming kind of a personal, fun game for me.
And another thing you can find on our website is our sponsors, and we would like to take a moment to plug them and thank them for coming on and supporting us during these pandemic COVID times. First of all, the Bean Bastard, a 2-man operation out of Buffalo, New York. They are doing great things, donating coffee to the first-line responders and so forth. So just a company you have to get behind. I'm not even going to give you the option. So go to thebeanbastard.com, pick up some coffee, support those guys. They put a lot of love into their product, and it shows. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram at The Bean Bastard. If you want to go to On Point Pomade, I know salons are open up. People are able to get their haircuts. I'm getting mine cut in a couple of days. I'm fucking stoked. On Point Pomade.
I already got mine cut because I'm amazing.
OnPointPomade.com. Keep your beard and hair looking on point. Use our code BSP15 and get 15% off your total purchase. Might be having Maddie Mullins do an Instagram Live with us here soon, so that'll be fun. Maybe do a giveaway.
That'd be fun.
Talk him into that.
I could definitely use it.
Yeah. And last but not least is Rockabilia.com. They have been amazing since they came on. It's been about almost 3.5 months now. They came on for a little bit longer. So I guess they like what we're doing. We like the products they have. I mean, they have over 500,000 items for sale, including just about any band that you would possibly want merch for. Unfortunately, there is no He Is We merch on there. I just checked. But maybe if you ask nicely, they'll get some there.
But dude, like that's not just like a shill, right? Because like you were like, hey, pick a band. And so I picked a band and I looked on the website because I was like, you know what? I'm going to pick some random band and see if they actually have what I'm looking for. So I went relatively obscure. I went with Swedish death metal legends Dismember, and I wanted a t-shirt of their first album, Like an Ever-Flowing Stream. And dude, they had it. Like straight up. They're like, what size you want? What color you want? You know what I mean? It was like straight up, like just right up there. And I was like, oh, cool. Well, 2XL. And, there it is. They have it. They like anything you want. Like I searched Carcass. They have Carcass. I searched Zao. They have Zao. They've got everything. They've got In Flames if you like terrible music, and like it's awesome. Like I don't even know how to describe it. This place has like all the shirts, all the wristbands, all like everything, dude. They've got it all. It's pretty cool.
But if you head over there now, you can use our discount code BREW15 and get 15% off your total purchase order. So now it pays to listen to us do these ads, because now you're saving money on getting your hair and beard looking good with On Point pomade, and we're saving you money on your clothes.
You're gonna look amazing. Like that's the end result. You're gonna look amazing. You're gonna be wearing the right clothes. You're gonna have the right swag, and your hair and beard are gonna be on point.
I mean, you might as well thank us for the, making your wife happy, getting the girlfriend of your dreams, the boyfriend of your dreams, getting the job promotion you've been waiting for. You can thank us for giving you the codes to Rockabilly and On Point Pomade. I mean, you're welcome.
When they ask you, they're going to be all like, yeah, this dude with like neck tattoos and this dude that has a tonsil infection told me to buy these shirts, and I did, and here we are. Like, I mean, I basically just like walked into a bank and they started throwing $100 bills at me. Like, that's what happened. So, make sure to share that story, share a link to the podcast, and we will be very appreciative of you supporting what we do, because we're really just looking out for you.
Absolutely. And for the BREWtally Speaking Podcast, I am John.
And I'm Dan.
And we'll talk to you all next time.
Oh, that fucking sucked. Shao Kahn, what'd you think?
That was pathetic.
Yeah. Coach, what'd you think?
Fucking embarrassing!
Okay. I mean, I knew it was gonna fucking suck, but I think those guys were a little rude. Austin Powers?
How about new?
Okay, I thought we were going to get the Austin Powers vote. We did not. John, use that for your podcast. It fucking sucks. But you knew what you were getting into. It's your own fault. It will result in less listens. You're going to see a decline in listeners if you start the show with that. You're going to see 30 seconds in, the number will plummet. And I will be there at the bottom of the plummet saying, I fucking told you. Don't use this fucking riff. It sucks. But it's yours.